Hi everyone, welcome to this demo video. Currently, we are in the README tab of the simple 12-month habit tracker where it features information about the graphics that are used in the spreadsheet, along with the level of habit progression that each graphics correspond with. Now, this tab also features information about how to switch between the default and goal-based setting. So you can always refer here if you have any questions or forget anything in the future. Now let's move on to one of our pre-made monthly tabs. And so here we are in August. So every monthly tab has the same layout. There's a summary dashboard. There's the habit input section. There's a health check-in section. There's a weekly overview section that features tasks lists for the month. And there's a live categories section. Now, additionally, there's also an optional reward center that you can use as a source of motivation for any habits that you're trying to develop. So let's enter a few daily habits to actually go over exactly what happens as we use this habit tracker. So I'm going to enter 1 hour learning web development, 1 minute reading. And as you can see, checkboxes will appear in every row that we've entered a habit. So yes, these are all daily habits that we are trying to complete this month. And one thing to note is that once you've entered habits that you are trying to develop for the month, the total will appear in the weekly status section as well as the summary dashboard. So as you can see, because there are 4 habits here, there are a total of 28 times or instances within week 1 that you can actually check off boxes. And scrolling up a little bit, that's the same goes for the monthly, the monthly status section. So with 4 habits in total that we're trying to develop this month, there are 124 check boxes, also known as instances, that you can complete your daily habits. Okay, so let's actually start using this. Okay, so let's say it's August 1st and you're completing your habit list for the day. As you can see, up here, this shows you the daily progress percentage for that particular day. And because you've completed over 80% of your habit list for the day, a daily peach flower bloomed. Now let's say it's August 2nd and we've only completed 3 out of 4 habits for the day. That shows that there's only a 75% completion rate, and therefore the flower's on the verge of blooming but not quite there. And something that you can also make note of down here is that this row shows you how many habits you've completed per day. So August 1st, you've completed 4. August 2nd, you've completed 3. And then in your week 1 status section, it shows you that you completed 7 out of 28 instances of the habits, which is at a 25% completion rate for that week. And as you can see, this cute graphic here is showing you, okay, you're on your way to the hot air balloon and you're on your way to making progress. And then so also I want to draw your attention to this weekly productivity trend graph here. And as you can see, the more habits you complete, the higher the percentage is. And boom, again, you've completed 100%. So peach flower bloomed and this dot raised. Okay, so now let's take a look at this right side of the screen. And I want to point out that this column here corresponds with how many days out of the month that you completed each particular habit. So you've completed or checked off 3 boxes or 3 days worth of 1 hour learning web development, 3 days of 30-minute reading, etc. And down here, we checked off only 2. We've only completed 2 days out of the month of sleeping by 12 a.m. And that shows you right here the progress percentage for the month. So so far you've only completed 10% of certain habits out of that month. And just like with the daily peach flowers, right here, this is a white habit flower, and it'll bloom once you've completed over 80% of a particular habit within the month. So this is more of a long run type of section, okay? And so actually, just to give you an example, I'm going to select this. And as you can see, with this example, we've marked off or completed 28 days out of 31 days. And so that's 90% out of the month, and there's a white habit flower. And that actually is reflected up here too. So you've achieved one habit flower, white habit flower for the month, and this is, I forgot to note that there's 2. You've completed 2 on this side. All right, so let me deselect that. Now, one thing that I would like to point out is that although this section down here appears to be empty, it actually does contain invisible checkboxes. So if you accidentally click on one here, a dialog box will appear to ask you if you want to toggle one of these checkboxes anyway, and what you can do is just press cancel. Because if you do click it, it will affect the statistics of your habit progression. So just to show you an example, if I click this one and I press OK, it changed from 11 to 12, and the percentages changed too. But we don't want that to happen, so you can just deselect this and press OK. Now, what if you're not sure which boxes have a checkbox in it? What you can do is select the whole section again, press the space bar, which selects everything at once, and then press the space bar again to deselect everything. Or what you can do is if you press it, and what you can do is you can enter placeholder habits right here to see what exactly is filled out. And then you can just deselect this checkbox. Notice how, because you've entered placeholder habits here, the statistics for the month does change. So make sure that if you have the need to do this, that you do delete the habits again to actually show, to actually reflect the number of habits that you're truly working on. So that's pretty much the gist of using this daily habit tracker. But what if you have habits that you are trying to develop that aren't daily habits, such as exercising 3 days per week? So this is what the goal-based setting on this habit tracker is for. So what I'm going to do is scroll up, click this drop-down menu, and change this August tab to goal-based. And so what happens is when you're in goal setting, almost every of the statistics text turns gold to reflect that you're in the setting. And once here, there are 2 sections that you must complete. The first section is completing or adjusting the goal for every habit for the month. And the second one would be planning how you would complete or achieve the goal. Okay, so let's dive a little deeper into this. The first 4 habits are habits that we want to complete on a daily basis. So that's 31. The goal is to complete 31 days out of 31 days. So 31 days out of the month for these habits. Okay. And one thing to point out is that this total here for the month is taken from this column or section. And the total for the week is actually taken from this section here. So as you can see right now, 31 times 4, that's 124 check boxes, and that's reflected here. So going back to exercising 3 days out of the week, that's about, I would say for this month, 3, 6, 9, 12, and maybe I'll say that that's 13 days out of the month that you would like to complete exercising 3 times per week. So we'll click here, 13 days, and this reflects 137. And now what you can do is set your goals for the month, or how to achieve this section here, okay? One way that I would say it's easy for you to calculate is if you plan first. So select, this is 31 days. If your month went perfectly, you would complete all of this. Right now, that's 4 habits every day. But now for exercising, that's 3 times per week. So let's just say it's Wednesday, Friday, and Monday. So that's Monday, Wednesday, Friday, pretty much. So we're going to do that. We're going to check off how the perfect month would look. And then we're going to set our goal this way. So as you can see down here, this is how the perfect month would look, right? If you were able to achieve 100% of the goal that you set for each habit for the month, this is how it would look. So therefore, what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to set the goal for the month. So I'm going to put 4 for now. I'm going to drag this out over here. And then for the days that there are 5, I'm going to do this, just 5. And this might be a little tedious, but it's one way to plan your month, and it's one way to really keep track of how you would like to spend your month. And so one thing I also want to point out is make sure that the total of this section, which is right here, always equals to the total of this section. That way you know for sure how many, if what you're entering aligns with what you have set for the month, or the goal that you have set for the month. And yeah, okay, so this is it. This is how your perfect month would look, right? And if you see here, this is, 100% you're flying in the air, right? That's how your perfect month would look. There are 5 habits. You've bloomed 5 white habit flowers. There are 31 days within the month, and you've achieved 100% for each day. So, that's just planning, right? So let's just deselect all of this now. And this is now what you can use as your monthly habit tracker, where it's the goal-based setting, where you know how much you want to, or what days you would like to complete particular habits. Okay. And yeah, so that's pretty much it for the goal-based setting. Now let's move on to the optional reward center, which we will scroll to the right to see. And so this section here auto-populates all of the habits that you have entered within the habit section. And what you can do is set the significance and difficulty level as a way of checking in and seeing which habits truly need an incentive to complete. So for instance, for myself, 1 hour learning web development, its significance is important to me, and its difficulty is actually really hard. So I'm going to set that for that habit. And then we're going to go down the line, and we're going to do the same to others. And so once you have done that, what you can do is use this tracker as you would. So I'm just going to show you an example of what would happen as you use this reward center. So we're going to pretend like we've finished or we've completed these habits throughout the month. And I'm just going to fill this out randomly. So right now we're going to do 4 out of the 5 habits we've completed over 80%. And so what happens over here is that check boxes will appear next to those that we've, again, achieved over 80% of. And what you may have also noticed is that there is a go checkbox amongst the 4 checkboxes. And that is to say that a go checkbox will only appear for any habits that you have deemed both important to complete and hard to complete. And that is a fun way of just, it's like a pat on the back. It's a job well done. So again, for any other habits that have varying significance and difficulty level, brown boxes will appear. So besides these, or to the right of these habits, you can input the reward that you would like. And I would say for the ones that are, again, important and hard to complete, really do consider rewarding yourself well. That way, in the future, it can serve as an incentive for other future habits that may fall within the same criteria range. And so, yes, this is how you use a habit tracker. Once you have rewarded yourself, you can check off the boxes to show that, yes, you have received the reward. And so, and that's what I'm doing here. I'm just checking off the boxes as an example that I have rewarded myself. And that's pretty much it for this reward center. Something that I forgot to mention is that you can actually freeze the habit list so that it is always visible. And to do that, you can highlight column C, which is where the habit list belongs. And you can just go to View menu, hover over Freeze, then click up to column C. Once you do this, a dialog box will appear to give you a heads up that you're going to edit cells that should not be edited. But for this purpose, it's perfectly fine, so you can just press the OK button. So after doing that, you can see that you've frozen the view of the habit list. And so if you scroll to the right, it'll show you the habit list all the time, and that makes it easier for you to complete the checkboxes as you proceed throughout the month. Now, something else to note about this or freezing the view is that the graph under the weekly productivity trend has actually shifted to the right. And that's just the nature of freezing a cell where we have overlaid a graph. And you can always revert this by unfreezing the panel. So you can unfreeze it at the end of the month or as you proceed throughout the month. Either way is up to you. To unfreeze, you just go to the view, go to freeze, then click on no columns, and then you can just press OK. So after unfreezing the panel, you can see that the graph is still under week 1 status. However, if you click out of the tab, and I'm going to click July, then go back into the tab, you'll see that the graph went back to where it belonged, which is under the weekly productivity trend. And that's the case for every month under the spreadsheet if you do this. So another aspect of the spreadsheet is this small area where you can click the drop-down arrows to see different titles for this section. So for this purpose, I'm going to do quote of the month. Then I'm going to enter test as an example quote. And for this one, I'm going to click on motivation. So here there are 3 cells that you can list 3 motivating factors for you to complete your habits throughout the month. All right. So last but not least, there's this section up here at the top that's called today's date. And so I just want to note that in this section, the date will automatically update every day. So in this area, you do not have to do anything. You do not have to edit anything. It'll just automatically update for you. And that's pretty much it for this section right here. Okay, so let's move into the health check-in section. So this section here is an area where you can track your mood, sleep, energy level, stress level, and water intake. So let's fill this section in for example purposes. So I'll put mood at 3, sleep at 2, and I'll just continue to click random values for each items. And as you can see, as you do it, as you enter these values, it'll auto-populate into the chart above. And so it'll look a little messy in the beginning, but over time, over the course of the month, everything will look more cohesive. And you can then see if there are any trends between any of these items that you're tracking. Does mood affect, or does your sleep affect mood? Does your stress level affect energy, or what have you? So yeah, I'm just going back a little to check some of the boxes that I forgot to check. Now, something to note is that the check boxes do not appear in the chart. The chart only graphs your mood, sleep, energy, and stress level. Okay? And so if we take a look on the right here, there is a column that shows your average for the month. That way, at the end of the month, or as the month progresses, you can see whether or not, you like what you're seeing or what have you. So something else to note is that instead of tracking water intake, you can replace this section or this row with anything else that you want to track, such as menstrual cycle or even medication consumption. but right now we're just going to change it back to water intake, okay? Another thing to note with this section is that if you ever want to clear any of the section, make sure you only clear the rows or cells that have a drop-down menu or drop-down arrow. As for the checkboxes, make sure you also only deselect or select checkboxes using your spacebar or your mouse. Now, another thing to note regarding this section is that as you enter data into the section, it'll populate chronologically from mood to sleep to energy level to stress level. It'll auto-populate onto the graph in that sequence. For instance, let's say that this month you only want to track your energy level. And so I'm just going to input a random value for energy level for example purposes. And so I'm just going to select 7. So now what you see on this graph is that instead of energy level, the key shows that you input mood. And the value of 7, although it's correct, it still shows that it's mood. So that's what I mean by this graph for some reason, or the section will only graph sequentially in the order of mood, sleep, energy level, and stress level. So, and that is the case when you input the first 4 data points. But the thing is, and as you can see, I'm completing the rest of it, but at the end of it, after you've completed the first 4 data points, the graph will then balance itself out and all the data point will correspond correctly. So you can see here, now energy level does correspond with the green line, and in the key it shows energy level is green. Stress level, we put at a 9, it corresponds at the 9 level, is a round dot, and in the key it shows is stress. So that's the thing with this section. I'm not sure why it does that. However, that's the case for the first 4 data points. And so after that, after inputting the first 4 data points, everything else follows correctly. So as you can see, I'm entering random values for sleep energy and stress level, and the graph is showing correctly. So that's just something to note, that if you do want to track anything individually, either stress, energy, sleep, or mood, what have you, make sure that the first day of the month and its values correspond correctly. Okay, so let's move on to the weekly overview section. So this section here features a series of task lists for every week in which you can use to track your tasks, your responsibilities, appointments, or what have you for the month. And so what I'm going to do is enter a few examples, and we're just gonna play with this a little bit. So we're gonna go with follow up on phone bill, plan a beach trip with Claire and Amira, and so on and so forth. So what's neat about this is that as you complete tasks, you can check off your checkboxes. In addition, I'm not sure if you've noticed, but when you enter any items within the task list, it'll show you the percentage at the bottom, the percentage of completion. So going back, so when you check off a box, it'll show you, okay, in this example, you've completed 50% out of all the tasks for week 1. And this goes the same for pretty much every week. And what's really neat is there's a small detail that once you check off a box, it'll show the item will cross out and the text will become lighter. So this is pretty much it for this section. And what else that you can do is that there's a weekly check-in section at the bottom of it. So every week, if you want to make note about anything or journal or what have you, you can do that for every particular week that you would like. And that's pretty much it. Pretty much the life category section is the same thing. The only difference is that the life category section, you can plan your month based on various categories of your life. So that's personal, business, finance, relationship, home. You can ensure that you have a well-rounded life. That way nothing slips through the cracks. So right now I'm just adding example items for each category. And as you can see, every time you enter something within any of the lists, a percentage will appear at the bottom showing you your progress. And just like the weekly overview, once you check off something, it'll cross out and it'll show you your completion rate. And also the same thing with the check-in area. Instead of checking in weekly, what you can check in is per category. If there are any notes that you want to make for any particular category, you can do that down here. So one more thing that I forgot to note is that you can actually customize this section and decide which areas of your life that you want to track. So if you click the drop down arrows, you'll see a bunch of options that you can mix and match to your liking. Okay, lastly, we have the yearly overview tab. So this tab here auto-populates the data that you've entered in the January through December tabs and use it to calculate your yearly status, or what I like to call the yearly score. So you can see how many flowers you've bloomed and the percentage rate completion for the year. And you can also use this chart here to compare and contrast on a month-to-month basis your progress over the course of the year. Additionally, you can review your averages in terms of your health check-in for every month and to see which months you had better sleep or what have you. So that's pretty much it for this spreadsheet. And if you ever need to refer to anything, you can check out the README or Notes tab for additional or reminder on how to use certain aspects of the spreadsheet. As you can see, if you hover over areas where there's like a golden arrow in the upper right hand corner, that'll show you or walk you through how to use that section. So thank you again, and I hope you enjoy using this spreadsheet.